Hey, welcome to the Action Shooting Show. I'm going to do another quick talk today on something that's been kind of maybe talked a little bit more about lately on the Run and Gun discussion page, and that is, I guess, hot guns and competitions. So there's kind of two different subjects with this. So the one subject is carrying a hot gun, usually a pistol. I've not shot a match with a hot rifle on the course of fire. So between stages, having a hot gun. The other one would be hot reholstering on the clock, specifically on the clock, because obviously, if you're carrying a hot gun out on the course, you have to put it in there hot at some point. But in that case, we're talking about that's just off the clock, not when you're racing around on the stage. So first off, both of these are kind of will most likely be MD or match range dependent. So sometimes certain ranges have certain safety rules that, as much as a match director would like to get around, they can't. Whether it's because of insurance, lawyers, board of directors, whatever. You know, the range that I run my sprinter match at, we can't move between bays hot because of just the rules of the range. So I've got to work around that. Some ranges they don't care. Some match directors, maybe the range will allow it, but the match director doesn't want to for a number of reasons. So I'll kind of start off with some thoughts on the cold range in general, because that's what I run. There are some benefits to this. I don't like to throw around the term safety as much, because we're not. If you're running a hot range, you're not trying to do something that's not a safe act. There's just a little more availability for someone to do an unsafe act at speed. So maybe that's the best way to put it. But I have to run one cold. The way that I do this, and there's some benefits to it, is everyone makes ready on the clock. I don't have a make ready. Some matches that run cold between stages will let you make ready before the stage starts. And when you're transitioning guns in my match, you are going to shoot your gun empty. So most people call this like a high value target. So shoot a bunch of pistol. The last pistol target, they're going to drop the magazine out, either on the ground or they can retain it. It's their choice. That leaves one round in the chamber. They're going to shoot that at the target. If they hit it, they get the point. If they miss it, then they get a penalty for that. And now the RO, he saw the mag go out. They saw the shot. The gun is empty. You're guaranteed there's no way they can have a round in the gun. Then they can holster or sling, do whatever with their gun. Move on with the rest of the stage, move on with the rest of the match. At the end of the stage, we don't really need to check them. We've confirmed that they're zero because, or they're empty because they shot that gun empty, and they can move on to the next thing. But my sprinter match is meant to get a lot of people through really quickly. Making ready on the clock is quicker than making ready off the clock because people have to do it under stress. Under the time clock, and they don't want to waste a bunch of time doing press checks and all this other stuff. So it tends to be really good for match flow, getting people in and out, not kind of wasting a lot of time on administrative gun handling. I also think it's a good opportunity to get people extra reps at loading their gun under stress, on the clock, and ammo management as well. So I think there are some benefits. Obviously, the downside is that that's all happening on the clock, and I don't know that that's a downside, but some people seem to get annoyed by it. So that's one way to handle it. Like I said, the other way is just if they're running between bays, hot that you just or not hot, you just let them make ready on the clock, and you either on the clock, if you don't want them holstering hot, you either give them some place to put it, dump, or dump table or something like that, or you work around that other ways. I'm not sure other ways, but I'm sure there are. So that's one way. The other conversation here is about hot reholstering on the clock. So this is, you've shot your gun, it still has ammo and a magazine in it, and we're going to stick it in our holster and move on to something else, like the rifle, while the clock is ticking. I do this in matches. It's not like I'll avoid a match that has hot holstering. For myself, I don't really care. I've done this enough. I've shot this long enough. Certainly, there's always a chance for accidents. I'm very careful. I don't race it. I look it into the holster, make sure my finger's out, nothing's getting caught up. I'd rather take the extra second to do that than have an accident, but it's not really a concern of mine. Um, Maybe I'll talk about some things for match directors and range officers here, because I think that's really where the conversation comes up here, because it does, I think, add a little bit of extra work. I'm a little more conscious when I'm on a stage with hot reholstering, watching what they're doing. My focus is really on that and only that when that time comes, and not on other parts of the stage or other parts of the match. So that's something to consider. I would say for match directors, your audience should be taken into consideration. If you get a lot of really, really brand new, fresh shooters, maybe think about how that's gonna work. That's generally where I see most of the issues. I've been on the range where, and this was a class, we weren't even like, I don't want to say speed holstering. It was between drills. The person had no time constraints at all where they would need to holster quickly, holstered incorrectly. I'm pretty sure finger on the trigger. They claim that that was not the case, but I don't know how else it would happen. And they torched a round off into their leg. And I had seen them holstering before this, and they were shooting the gun right in the holster. They weren't looking. It was really, fishing around. They didn't really have good mechanics. And I think they were a little experienced, and I don't think they realized it. And accidents happen that way. So this is not a argument against hot holstering. I think that's up to the match director and the people working it. What their level of security with that is, but it's something to consider, because we do get some really fresh people that now they've come up to a stage, came up the huge hills, our heart rate's at 190, they're huffing, they're trying to shoot, they're trying to race the clock. Things happen. So maybe if you're designing stages, designing matches, you're working them, keep all this in mind. We want to keep people safe. So it's certainly holstering under stress is a skill that we should have, but I want people to kind of keep it in mind that I've been doing this for 10 years. I'm pretty comfortable with the thing. If you're been shooting for 6 months, everyone's got different experience levels, and we can't just completely ignore that in the conversation of like hot holstering on the clock. So and I've even done it like in night matches, and that's even kind of, I don't want to say sketchier, but that really adds to issues, because like I can't look down with night vision and easily see my holster. So this leads me on to my next topic or thing. If you're a competitor and you shoot matches that have hot reholstering on the clock, really be conscious of what you're doing. That's not the place to pick up a tenth of a second on the next, the guy you're racing against. Maybe dry fire it, practice it, make sure that your gear is, make sure your holster is adequate for it, especially if you're running around between stages with the hot gun. You need a holster that holds the gun. You can't have a gun popping out when it's hot. Now you're not in control of it. Not all guns are drop safe. Even some guns are supposed to be drop safe, maybe aren't, especially if we started fiddling with triggers and ignition systems and stuff. Keep that in mind. Make sure you're doing your due diligence, that you're practicing, that your gear is solid, that you don't have extra straps and things hanging around that could get caught. I mean, a shirt kind of bloused out or web gear can get caught in the trigger or the holster, cause issues. As a competitor, make sure you're being squared away. And I would say if you're new and you're uncomfortable, here's the thing: if you shoot a match with hot reholstering, you don't have to. I've never known a match that makes you reholster hot. If you want to drop your magazine out, rack the round out, and then holster, did you lose a little bit of time? Yeah, but did you do it in a safe way that you were comfortable with? Yeah, okay, well then that's fine. You could rack a round out and holster and still do really competitive if you've practiced that and you've done it well and you're shooting well. No one's making you holster hot. So if you're one of the people that really, really is nervous about that for yourself, just don't do it. Same with matches that let you run between stages hot. Legion's a good example. You can run hot pistol throughout that whole match, but you can also empty your gun out at every stage. And generally, most of the stages I remember, they may have a make ready, so you can load your gun again. So there's not really, in that case, there's not really an advantage to running hot. And maybe there's an advantage to not running hot because all your mags are out. You can top off, you can switch over, you can always make sure you're starting with a full magazine. Um, so that's some of my thoughts on it. I'm curious to hear other people's thoughts. I think it's a conversation that people get real kind of heated up over, and I think sometimes they're thinking of their particular life situation, their experience level or lack thereof. I mean, if you're an RO, I guess it's worth knowing, does this match allow hot holstering or not? If you're not comfortable ROing people that are like holstering really fast on the clock, that would be something. Don't go or work those matches. I've worked them. I've been there with them, and I'll throw a little. I made an anecdote here with it, and this is kind of more for the match directors. Working Midnight Madness last year, I think we mentioned this on our after action. We had some people show up. This is a night match. They'd never shot. To my eyes, I don't think they'd ever shot any competition. The gear they had was not adequate for it. They had holsters that off the clock they could not get their gun in their holster. I mean, I watched a guy spend 2 or 3 minutes trying to get his gun holstered because it was like a pancake kydex thing, like in the waistband, and it's little tiny gun, and he had some kind of awful web gear. Other ones with like bad chest holsters and stuff like that, like 90s, or cheap eBay stuff. I mean, really, really bad. And there was a hot holstering on that stage. One of my friends worked it. They actually had to kind of stick a holster or a gun into the holster for somebody, just to keep it safe. So we're used to a lot of really experienced people showing up, and that is not always the case. So I guess as a match director, as an RO, really be conscious of that. If this is something at your match, we want to give people the skills. We want to give people the opportunities. We want to keep it safe. We don't want accidents. We don't need, if someone gets shot at a match because of some kind of unsafe act that wasn't stopped, that could have been avoided some other ways. Depending on the range, it can be really hard to get a match back there, or that situation. So, again, don't just assume that your situation is everybody's. Don't just assume because you're inexperienced that the more experienced people can't do it safely, or that because you have experience, the new guys, they should be fine. Let's all kind of keep an open mind on these conversations, and work with each other. We want to keep having really good matches and safe matches, and all over the country these are happening, and they've all got their own little flavors and things. And I think we think what we do is the same as someone else, and it's not always. But just some of my thoughts from I've been ROing run and gun for 4 or 5 years now, 3-gun for 8 or 9 years. I've seen probably not seen it all, but seen a lot, and know what can happen. So keep an open mind, be safe out there, and I hope to see you guys all out in the range. See you all at a match.